all of them in their bedrooms asleep. Don't just shrug your shoulders.
That's because I explained it.
All right. Well, today we're doing a little update from a previous episode we've done.
We are.
Yeah. I feel like it. I don't know necessarily that we're going to get through it all in one setting. At least I feel like, you know, you and I are kind of a yin and yang. I feel like you need to just kind of lay down the documents, because we didn't have documents the last time we recorded this about this case, which is the Idaho Four.
Mm-hmm. I can lay down some of the documents. I haven't gone through all of them because there's literally thousands.
Right.
But I can give a generalization of the Idaho Four.
Yeah.
And I can also, I mean, of course, each of us are going to have our opinions. Our opinions are probably going to differ, but I think that's probably good, because what fun is it if we always agree or have the exact same thought processes on everything we do?
I agree. Well, and that's it gives something for our listeners to kind of debate about,
or even think about.
Because here's the thing, I don't know.
No.
I don't know what happened in this case.
Nobody knows what happened in this case.
I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like asking questions and trying to figure out, okay, so if this happened, then why is there this and that kind of thing? And I think a lot of people are doing the same thing.
Sure.
However, there are a lot of people that just accept the narrative and it is what it is and let it be. And that's fine too. But and I'm just more curious than that. And
there's parts of the narrative that I agree with. There is a lot of things that I have questions on. I think there's a lot of things that a lot of people have questions on. A lot of things have developed since we talked last.
Right.
So since we spoke last, I think that he had pled guilty before we spoke last. If he hadn't, he
oh
did
my gosh,
plead guilty.
we should have both listened to.
Yeah. But also since then, there's been a lot of document dumps. There's been a lot of information that wasn't available before. A lawsuit has been filed with the parents of the victims. And there's been a lot of information. And I think the problem that people have is when Brian Kohberger accepted a plea deal, that there was no sort of a proffer as a part of that plea deal. Meaning that as a part of that plea deal, he didn't have to explain anything. He didn't have to say how he got into the house, how he selected the girls. He didn't have to say where the weapon was. He didn't have to say anything. He basically had to say, yes, I plead guilty. Yes, I agree with the charges. And that was that.
Right, because he didn't even plead guilty himself. His lawyer did it for him. Is that correct?
No, he actually
the judge asked him, is this how you plead? And he just said yes. He didn't say.
And that is typically how it goes. So behind closed doors, the attorneys actually work out the plea agreement. And now I will say that before a plea agreement can be entered, the defendant absolutely has to agree to it. So I don't know how that conversation went. None of us do, and we probably never will.
I think it was just brought up, which then I kind of thought, oh, well, that's kind of weird, is that he's not said anything.
No.
Like zero. He said nothing.
No, he hasn't said anything. And I don't know that if he did, I don't know. So just a little bit about Brian Kohberger, and I'm sure everybody's already familiar with this. He was kind of a loner anyway. He was a lot of bit socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'd been that way for most of his life. He did start out where he was heavy set. He lost some weight. The kids in like his high school, junior high, whatever, made fun of him. He really was never a social person. And I don't think he ever had like a lot of friends. As a matter of fact, one of the things that was released is the number of contacts in his phone, and it was less than 20.
He strikes me as someone possibly being on the spectrum a little bit, like maybe an Asperger's. He had OCD. He had some of these things that are characteristically like a person with Asperger's. Um, the socially awkwardness, the compulsivity, the OCD, those types of things are characteristic of someone like that.
So, do we just want to jump into, because there's a lot of theories?
Well, yeah, I was going to say this too, since we did our episode,
Mhm.
I kind of we talked about it. It was out there. We did it kind of when the documentary came out, or not. I don't know if it was a documentary, but it was there was a couple documentaries that came out, and I think that's originally why we did the episode, is because it was trending and we talked about it. Since then, there has been quite a few content creators that really that's all they've been doing is going down, I don't want to say going down rabbit holes, but having a lot of theories as to what happened and just trying to ask questions and find out a lot of different things. That's all they do. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that. So
No. Now,
I just started looking into it just now recently again about all the different theories. And so it does make you kind of scratch your head and wonder what really did happen. And of course, I'm the type of person that I'm like intrigued by all of it. And so I want to hear and I want to listen to all the things. Whereas I know your personality character is to, look at the documents, get the information from the documents, and go from there. Which I agree with that too. However, there's some things in the documents that just still make sense
don't
to
make
me.
sense. Okay.
And so I feel like that's kind of where I want you to start, because I do have questions.
Okay. So one of the theories just going forward is that there was multiple assailants. Now, I think if there was multiple assailants, Brian Kohberger was definitely one of those. And I don't know what your thoughts are. Do you think that he was involved or not involved?
I think he was involved. I don't think he was involved in doing any actual murdering.
Okay.
I think he was set up to be involved. That's kind of my theory, and I'll explain it whether we get to it in this episode or another one. But
Okay.
yeah, I think he was involved. I just don't think he did any active killing. That's my opinion.
Yep. So this is some of the evidence that's been presented. So we can start with, I guess, his character as a person. He did have an awful lot of complaints against him where he was currently employed and I believe going to school as well. And that was at WSU, which is Washington State University. Those complaints were everything from being aggressive towards females, unfair grading, stalking, and that would kind of sum it up. But there was multiple on each thing. So, and I do know that at least some of the females and the staff actually at some point set up like escorts that would escort students and faculty out of the building if Kohberger was around. So that's how fearful some of the students and some of the faculty were of Brian Kohberger. So that just kind of gives you an idea, at least of maybe what his personality is. So now the rest of it.
So I just want to go on the premise of I'm going to kind of counter you a little bit
Okay.
because I mean, whatever came of that, like, did he get any reprimands
He
for
did.
it? And then also, what was his rebuttal to what they were accusing? And the only reason I say that, and I'm not trying to say he didn't do anything creepy, because I feel like his personality in general was creepy. He was socially awkward. He did not know how to understand boundaries, personal space. He had no filter. So he would say things that were off the wall that maybe somebody, again, I'm going with the theory that he's probably on the spectrum a little bit with kind of how his tendencies are. Um, and when you have a person like that who doesn't really know how to talk socially to people, it is off-putting to the other person, and it offends the other person, and then it creeps them out, and then you kind of get this almost a confirmation bias type thing where you're like, you peg somebody as, oh well, he's a creeper and a stalker, and whether he's done anything or not, that's kind of how a
Yeah.
person feels.
He
And you can think of somebody like in your high school when you were going to school, or now, who's probably like that, who's probably never really done anything but has that vibe to them.
Sure. He did have he was talked to. I think there actually is some write ups at WSU about his behavior, how he acted towards females, how he was kind of making them feel with his presence,
And then
and how he acted. Now,
you have, I guess, like I said, you have to go on. It's hard because you
sure.
can't prove any of that, and you can't say.
Well,
What I mean is, it's how a person is feeling. So, Mike, you're creeping me out. Like, I don't like you. You must be a stalker.
sure.
You
And
know,
we,
type of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm
it,
making any sense, but it's just,
and if we have time later on, or even another episode, we can actually go through the lawsuit, because the lawsuit does a good job of documenting these are the particular incidents that we have a problem with, that we don't feel were addressed appropriately. And to be honest,
but
he
he
was
was not accused of any type of crime. Is that right?
um, well, crime. So we're talking about
I mean,
that.
assault or
Yeah, but these
like,
would be two different things. So if he was in violation of maybe uh, a school policy,
right,
would be different than a crime.
right.
And he ultimately was expelled. However, he was expelled after the murders. So I think the reason for the expulsion is maybe also in the lawsuit. They just felt that obviously that was a little late.
Right. And it would look bad if they didn't do
But
that.
sure. So
The thing I have an issue with is that you have this professor that he worked under that just gave him these high accolades and said he was the best student I've ever had, and just praised him on what a good job he did. And
that would have been
it
prior to WSU.
what exactly. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, you've got
Yeah.
a juxtaposition here
Mm-hmm.
on one person is giving him accolades saying he's the best student I've had. I'm just saying,
Sure.
it's
It is the same.
it's a,
It is the same professor that thinks he did it and wants to talk to him about it.
and that's fine.
But I agree,
no,
because
I don't agree with that. I don't think she thinks he did it. I think she was stunned when she heard that he did it, but she doesn't necessarily. I don't think she knows. I don't think she has an opinion either way. But she
well,
was
I know she wants to talk to him
right.
about it. But I did see an interview where she said that she
was shocked because that's
she
not
thought he was a good student.
right.
But so we can kind of move on. So
Sure, sorry.
there was and that's just kind of,
Well, I
maybe
think
his personality is what I was trying to get at. This
yeah,
is the personality,
and
that
I agree.
that he
It's
had.
just these are the kind of the discussions I want to have because I I always sound like I'm arguing with you, but I'm not. I'm just trying to say, okay, let's look at a
Mhm.
different point of view of maybe the other
Sure.
possibility of he maybe got misjudged a little bit. And
Possible.
like I said, not trying to stand up for him. I'm just,
I think we can both agree that he was awkward.
oh yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
So, anyways, um, they had some phone pings. I think there was 12 of them that showed him in the vicinity of the King Road house. Now, exactly what distance he would have been from the house, I don't know. What he was doing there, I don't know. Because I think WSU to 1122 King Road is it 20 miles? Something to that effect. I mean, it's not a great distance anyway.
See, now there were some discrepancies with that because there's 7 minutes missing
7 minutes where?
in the timeline of the phone data, the phone pinging.
Okay.
And it puts him at a different location. And he was also at the smoke shop. And there's miraculously 7 minutes missing of where would have justified his whereabouts.
Now, the one thing that we do know, at least from video surveillance, is that there was a vehicle that matched his that did circle the residence and that was caught on video in town that night.
Supposedly, because now they're saying that the video footage of the vehicle, something about one has fog lamps, his has fog lamps, and the one on the video didn't. So now it was a vehicle that was similar, but not necessarily his, and it's hard to really tell if it was his or not.
So that's just so that was another one. So at least according to law enforcement, you see the video where it did circle the house, and ultimately it parked somewhere because then it quit circling. So you didn't see it in at least the ring video and the surveillance that they had. According to law enforcement, he would have entered through the back door, which was a sliding glass door into this house. Now, the house itself is 3 levels. So if you're coming from, I believe it's King Road, and you're going to the house, that door is to the bottom level. But when you circle around to the back side of the house, the sliding door comes right into the second level. And in the second level of the house is where they kind of have, I think there's a kitchen and maybe a dining room area. And then there's a set of stairs. There's some bedrooms there as well. And there's a set of stairs then that goes up to the third level.
Right.
So supposedly he came in through the sliding glass and went upstairs and attacked 2 of the girls that were in a bedroom together. And I want to make sure that I get everybody's names correct when I do this. But it was Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonclaves. Those would have been the first 2, at least with law enforcement theory, that he attacked first. Both of them were asleep at the time.
Allegedly.
So, because how are you going to prove if somebody was asleep and they were awake? You're probably never going to prove that. So
well,
they
you can with the defensive wounds, which they both had.
If they did, there was very few on those 2, according to at least the autopsy results. Most of the defensive wounds, because there was none on their fingers or their hands. The fingers and hands, those defensive wounds would have been on Xana.
I think there was also some on both of the girls. There were some on their arms and
maybe on the arms. And I have
But if you're going like this,
it depends on how they were sleeping or how they would be laying. Now, one thing we do know.
I'm gonna just disagree with you right there, because I feel like I have seen that there's claim that there was defensive wounds on 3.
I've seen a claim. So, but one thing we do know is there was no blood on their feet, not on the tops, not on the bottoms. So that would be an indication that they were never upright anyway. They would have at least been on the bed and never standing up. So those were the first 2 attacks, according to law enforcement, that after they were deceased, that he come down the stairs. He met Xana on the second story, which would have been the same story that he would have entered through that back door. He may have seen her, she's seen him, chased her into the bedroom that she was sharing with Ethan Chapin. It was actually her room because I don't think Ethan lived there. He attacked her, and I don't know if he attacked her and him, her, then him, and then back to her, or her, then I don't know that order could ever be figured out. I think only whoever did it would know. But she did have blood on the bottoms of her feet, which would indicate that she would have stepped in blood, which would indicate that she would have definitely been upright. Ethan, on the other hand, did not have any blood on his socks at all, which would indicate that he at least wouldn't have been standing in a pool of blood. So I think she also had the most defensive wounds because she had wounds clear down to the bones of her fingers, which would indicate that her hands were up and maybe there was a struggle with this knife. Ethan had, all of the girls had damage to their face and to their head. One of the girls in particular had more than anybody else, and I believe that was that Madison?
No, it was Kaylee.
Or it was Kaylee. She had 24 plus wounds to her scalp, face, and neck. And then according to the autopsy, there was 11 to her chest, and then 3 to her extremities. And then there were some punctures to the table of her skull, injuries to her teeth and tongue, perforations of the subclavian, is that how it's pronounced, artery and vein, hemorrhaging in her chest cavity, and then blunt force, and this is where there's some debate on multiple weapons, to her head. And then it was reported that her BAC at the time, her blood alcohol content, was 0.107. So Madison, 13 to her scalp, face, and neck, 5 to her chest, 10 to her upper extremities, wounds to her liver, also perforations to her subclavian vein, subclavian artery, and blood vessels in her chest wall. Her BAC was 0.282. So do we want to talk about one weapon
I want
versus
you to
two?
tell me how you think he did that, all 4 of them.
Okay.
What your theory is. That's what I want you to tell me, because I have a hard time with it. So I want you to explain it to me so that I can understand.
So I do think it is very possible that he was able to do all 4. So now the exact order, I'll never know with 100% certainty. But if I go by the order that law enforcement is saying they went in, which would have been the 2 girls on the 3rd floor, I think that he would have entered the room. He would have had his weapon. I think he could have leaned over. I think where maybe some people get confused, they think, well, how could he stab or do this much damage to one person and the other person not be awake? But we're not talking about king-size huge beds. These are small beds. I think they were twins is what they look like, at least in the photographs. And I think it would have been easier if he would leaned over him and attacked him at the same time, basically going back and forth. And I think they would have probably easily been incapacitated by the time they would have woke. I think by the time they would have woke, it would have been pretty hard for them to fend anybody off, especially given their blood alcohol content. I think from there, he went downstairs. I think that he had contact with Xana outside the room, possibly. They ended up back in her room. He attacked her. There was obviously a struggle. How the struggle played out, I wouldn't know. I think that she was most likely incapacitated where she couldn't really fight back. And I think that it's possible that Ethan woke up, but I don't think that he would have been able to defend himself or her at all. And I think he was easily incapacitated and killed.
Why do you think he wouldn't be able to defend himself?
I think due to his concentration of alcohol and of the amphetamine level.
But he had less alcohol consumption. His numbers were lower than anybody else's.
He did. So his, we can just go over his.
It was 0.17.
No, actually, he wasn't even that high. His blood alcohol content was 0.12.
Okay.
His amphetamine level was 260 nanograms per milliliter of blood, which is very high. So now here's something that I haven't heard hardly anybody talk about. Matter of fact, parts of it I've never heard anybody talk about, which is when, and everybody's probably experienced this if they've been intoxicated, is when you lay down and you sleep and then you're awakened from a drunken sleep. So first, when you lay down, if you've ever had the room spin, which a lot of people do.
The thing I wanted you to be careful of, though, is that we don't know that happened.
We don't know that what happened.
Well, I think you're assuming that that's what's going on with him, but.
Which part?
Well, he's got, I have a hard time. I have a hard time thinking that he wouldn't be able to defend himself. I don't think he was probably incapacitated because they were just eating food. She had just ordered Grubhub. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was so passed out that he wouldn't have woken up to any of that. It's really hard for me to understand that. And then also the pictures of where the blood is in the hallway on the stairwell. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense.
Can I chime in for a minute?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So granted, it was not like Mike was not laying next to me, but the other night, Mike had a little too much to drink. And when Mike has too much to drink, he has restless legs really bad. I usually end up on the couch. So I was out on the couch, never once heard him go into the kitchen. I had 3 drinks that night, so was by no means intoxicated at all. Mm-hmm. Woke up the next morning and there are 7 wrappers of fruit by the foot. So you've got to pull all that off this little white strip. Never heard a thing.
And I think that in this case,
that's different than brutal, like 100 stabbings.
That's what I'm saying. But comparing having alcohol included in it, I mean it.
And I think with anytime I did talk because I wanted to know. So when I was in law enforcement, most of the stuff that I dealt with would have been DUIs, people using alcohol. I wasn't a drug recognition expert, which is somebody who, if you're dealing with a DUI and there's drugs involved, that's the person that has the training that can come in and identify the category of drug that is causing their impairment. And so because I'm not an expert in how people react when they're under different drugs or alcohol and drugs combined, I reached out to a DRE and I asked him, I go, so you have somebody that's using a stimulant and you have somebody that's using a depressant. How do they react with each other? I mean, what happens? And I gave him the blood alcohol and the results on the levels of amphetamines. And he says, one thing to remember with amphetamines is everything that goes up, because that's an upper, has to come down. He goes, now one thing you're not going to know is, was he on his way up or was he on his way down? He goes, so the other thing is when someone's using a stimulant and they're using alcohol, what the stimulant tells the body is you can keep going, but that's
Right.
in your head.
Right. It makes your brain activity higher, and it makes you possibly or potentially consume more alcohol because you don't feel as drunk.
Yep. You don't feel as drunk.
However, his blood alcohol his was the lowest.
It was the lowest. It was still over the legal limit. And I do know from experience, now people, like if we were talking and let's say Marissa was a heavy drinker. So she drank a lot. She's a college student, whatever the case may be. Sitting here just chatting back and forth versus somebody who, let's say I don't drink a lot, you would notice a difference. Like I would seem maybe far more intoxicated than she would at the same alcohol level.
Sure.
However, when you begin to test somebody, which tests things like their balance and things of that nature, that's when you notice that this person that would typically do very well is going to now show their signs of impairment. So in our discussion, he said, so basically his level, taking a stimulant would not negate anything that alcohol would do to your balance.
Right, because it's just alcohol's still in your system. Nothing negates. They're both there. It's just as how you react to one or the other.
But there was something else that he brought up that I had never even heard of, and that is something called positional alcohol nystagmus. You ever heard of that?
Well, I know what nystagmus is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So positional alcohol nystagmus is how the alcohol affects your body when you lay down or when your head goes sideways. Mm-hmm. And he goes, if you've ever laid down on the bed when you're drunk and you're awake and the room starts to spin,
right,
that is that effect. And so if you're laying down or you're in a side motion, even if you're awake, and then you pop up, it's going to really, really amplify the problems you're going to have with balance. Amongst probably other things, but mainly with balance. So we talked about, okay, so let's say somebody with this level of both the alcohol and drugs was laying down. How easy would it be to overcome that person? And what he said is pretty easy, especially if you're a sober person. So if you're the sober one in the room, you've already got the advantage because you have no alcohol or drugs in your system. Now, that's assuming that Brian didn't, because that's one thing we don't know is, had he consumed any? Was he a drinker? Was he using drugs? Don't know that. So just considering the information.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
As I say, you're also considering somebody who is in a one-on-one situation, not who've just killed 2 people and then had a struggle with a third, and probably is now maybe going to the 4th.
Now, I would argue that the struggle with Xana probably wasn't much of a struggle because her BAC was the highest. She was over.
That was Maddie's.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So I can.
I thought Maddie was the drunkest, but anyway.
No, Xana.
Because Xana had Adderall too.
She did very, very low dose of Adderall, actually.
But she was the one awake, texting and getting the Grubhub.
Xana Kernodle was...
or not the Grubhub, whatever, the DoorDash.
0.229. Now, 0.229.
What was Maddie's?
Maddie was...
I thought she was pretty high too.
I don't believe so.
Oh.
I think hers was relatively low. So Kaylee was 0.107. Oh, Maddie she was also extremely, she was a 0.282. So she was extremely.
Yeah, I would say she was the drunkest one.
So
I was going by what you texted me earlier.
Pretty easy too. So if them 2 were asleep, I don't think there would have been any struggle. I think that would have been extremely
But
easy and fast, especially
but we can't say that she was asleep because she's out of the bed and on the
we
floor.
can say that she was
and
laying.
has defensive wounds and was a struggle.
She was on the bed when
She wasn't. She was on the floor.
who?
Santa.
Oh, I was talking about the other two girls upstairs. The reason they would have been easy is they were laying down. And had they been asleep, which I think they were, because I think if he'd have walked in, I think it's probable one of them would have been able to get to their feet. But so I'm assuming, based on the fact that there was no blood on their feet whatsoever, that they were at least on the bed, and it probably would have been pretty quick, especially with the knife that he was using. And so I think that would have been actually quick, probably not difficult for him. And then I don't think that Xana would have been difficult.
But you don't think it would be difficult? He beat her face and knocked her teeth out.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 50 plus stab wounds among the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to do this.
You don't think so?
I don't.
Through rib cage?
Huh?
Through the rib cage?
Mm-mm. Not with the knife he was using, I don't think. Did you see the knife he used?
Interesting. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
So
you know what a K-bar is.
I think it would have been, especially the size of that knife.
But then what else did he use on her face if there was blunt force trauma?
The knife. I think it was I think he used it as two different weapons.
Okay.
So, and I can show you because I bought one.
Why did you buy a K-bar knife?
Because there's something I knew about a K-bar that nobody thought about. And they're like, where did the blunt force trauma come from?
Well, yeah, you can use the butt end of it.
Use the butt. Because the butt of a K-bar is a hammer. This end is steel and it's solid. It's like a hammer. So had he been stabbing and then come down like this, it would cave a person's face. And that would definitely cause blunt force trauma. Okay. Absolutely. So that's what I think, that when they say, well, there's two weapons. Well, I think it was one. I think it was this way. And I think he used the butt of that gun, or the butt of the knife as well. Mm-hmm. And I think it would have done terrible damage. And I think he, I guess that's my theory on that.
Yeah.
But so far as.
So does one normally just carry that like that?
Like what?
Just carry it in the case?
I would assume so.
Would you just carry it around like that in your hand?
In my hand?
Yeah.
No.
How would you?
Well, it depends. So if I carried this on a regular basis, I would probably have it on my belt. However, if I bought it for the purpose of, what happened in this.
Why would you even mess with that is what I want to know.
I don't know. That'd be a question for whoever used it. So, I don't know. There is a little difference with this one. This one snaps right over, I don't know if they call it the pommel or whatever, whereas his attached up here. But anyways, I suppose a person might carry it like this because they are very sharp. And if you carried it outside, you're probably going to be, how would you put that in your pocket? You'd probably cut yourself or your pants or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So basically you would carry it in the sheath just to keep from contacting the blade and damaging something. That's really what it's for anyway.
So did you read in those reports on the DNA that was on the backside of the sheath?
On the backside or on the front side?
Well, on the
snap?
Not on the snap, on the backside of the sheath. It is in the backside of the sheath. There was 2 male DNA.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Interesting.
So I don't know if it's DNA that was carried over from wherever you purchased the knife or.
But it wasn't, but it's actual DNA. Like we have touch DNA from the snap, but it was actual
it was not touch DNA. It was actual DNA that they recovered from the snap. I actually read that there was a big argument on, people were saying, well, it's touch. And so when I was researching the case, there was an individual that was talking about the actual DNA, and he goes, that's been a point of confusion. It actually he doesn't know where that came from. It wasn't touch DNA. It was actual sample of DNA.
Okay.
But now that is an argument that I have a problem with.
I do too, because
which is there was 2 pieces of DNA that were unidentified.
there was also unidentified male blood in the wall in the stairwell or the hallway, one of the two.
See, in all the reports, and even in the report that I printed off today, the newest one that's 155 pages, and what that actually is the prosecution and the defense's kind of going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I never seen male blood DNA.
Mm-hmm.
May have overlooked it because it's 155 pages long.
Yeah, there's supposedly two instances of male DNA blood.
Yeah, I don't know.
And,
I don't have an answer for that one.
When you look at the pictures, I don't know how there would get blood splatter in that hallway, clear up on the wall there. I don't understand that.
Well, if one of the explanations is if there was still blood,
and there's
on
multiple
the instrument.
Well, it was what do they call it? Transfer DNA or not transfer? Is that what it was called? Basically, where you're swiping.
Mm-hmm, that would be a transfer.
And then there's also splatters, and I can't remember what else. But most of the blood in the second floor in the kitchen area on that wall was Kaylee's. And then there was also some Kaylee mixed with Maddie.
Mm-hmm. And that, Kaylee.
And then there was the two weird male DNA, two male samples.
Yeah, there would probably be a lot of blood DNA and blood on the knife, is what I would guess. So if
what was he even doing?
Around,
how would he even,
don't know. Did he confront Xana? Was her first confrontation on the second floor outside of the bedroom? And that's where maybe a first struggle started, and he swung, and that would have cast off. I mean, I don't know.
The third thing I have a real problem with is that if there's 4 brutal stabbings, the pictures that were shown, there's not near enough blood.
How much of that blood would have been internal bleeding? How much do you think would be captured by the body in a stab wound?
I'm not sure, but there was subclavian and neck wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And a body's bleeding out. Like I said, I'm a labor and delivery nurse, and I've seen plenty of postpartum hemorrhage. There's not near enough blood. I think there was a cleanup for sure.
And we don't know. We don't know if he cleaned it up. And once again, we also
do you think he's the one that cleaned it up? Do you think he had time to clean it up? The other question I have is Dylan, who supposedly heard them going up and down the stairs,
mm-hmm.
and then she heard Murphy, the dog, going crazy and barking for hours.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're telling me that dog's barking this whole time and nobody's doing anything? No, but everybody's sleeping in their beds. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's awake. Then she says, well, then it sounded like the dog was barking outside for a long time. He just kept barking and going crazy.
Was it barking
what?
Before they were killed or after they were killed? So that's
both.
A question.
She said she heard Kaylee going up and down the stairs. Then she heard the screaming and the crying in the bathroom. And then Murphy was barking like crazy.
Mm-hmm. So was it barking though before or after?
All for hours during the night until like 5 a.m. The dog was barking.
So
there's a lot of things that are not mathing. There is not, you go from what she's trying to say her story is, and you have Xana who's awake, who's ordering food. It does not make sense. So you're telling me Xana's awake and eating food, but she's not hearing supposedly Kaylee screaming that there's somebody here? Like that's what her statement was, is that Kaylee went up and down the stairs and said, somebody's here, and she's screaming, and then she's crying in the bathroom, according to Dylan. Xana is currently awake eating food because she just got her DoorDash food. I keep saying Grubhub, sorry, DoorDash food. So she's awake at 4:50 or 3:50, whatever the words, on her, according to her phone.
You think
you can't tell me that Xana didn't hear that shit going on in the bedroom right above her, or supposedly right above them?
You know, one thing that I consider is, you know, this is a party house. Xana has a BAC of 0.22.
That maybe she's still like, awake and she's still eating.
Yeah.
Xana is awake and eating.
What I'm saying is maybe she's going like, shut up, and just keeps eating. You know, I don't know. But I'm saying like it's possible.
Okay.
So
they're saying no way in hell. No, yeah. I don't believe it. I don't believe the narrative. I don't believe what they're saying at all.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that I'm 100% with the narrative, but I'm saying that I would definitely include that narrative with another narrative. I think it's definitely possible. So what's yours then? I mean, we kind of went over mine. That's then
clearly my opinion is there's not enough blood. There was a cleanup in my opinion. And also when you look at the pictures of the blood splatter, it looks like it was either wiped or it was painted over. One of the two, but there's a cleanup job going on. I saw the picture in Xana's room. I saw the picture of blood. It was the unredacted photo. I bled more on my bed than in my cycle than what happened on that bed. So,
I mean, I seen the blood all over the floor and going up the table. It looked like a lot to me, but you know,
yeah, I think I don't buy this whole. I don't buy it because I don't feel like explain. I don't know. I just need you to, if that's what your theory is, I just need you to explain why she heard all Kaylee going up and down the stairs. She heard the dog barking. She heard there's somebody here. Xana's up eating her food, but they're all claimed to be in their bedrooms asleep, and he kills them. All of them in their bedrooms asleep. Don't just shrug your shoulders.
That's because I explained it. I already said, well, maybe it's because Xana was at a blood alcohol content. It's a party house, and she's downstairs just thinking, you know, shut up. I'm trying to eat. I mean, that's
okay.
I think that's plausible.
Okay.
And so far as the rest of it, I think that, you know, a completely sober person who is in good shape himself, I think it would have been a pretty simple task.
Okay.
So had he been using a small pocket knife? Maybe not. A knife with an 8-inch blade, I think a person be incapacitated within.
There's several theories that there's multiple people involved. And that's one theory that I'm more believable because I don't, the actions that are going on in this and the story that they're telling to me doesn't make any sense. There's rumors that there was a major kind of a drug operation going on, particularly involved the house, including that one door that was under the, I don't want to say padlock situation, but it had the number lock on it that supposedly nobody could get into. They lived in very close proximity to a fraternity house, sorority house that was right next door.
They were on Greek Row, I believe.
Right. So we had there's really close proximity, and there was a lot of stuff going on. Supposedly there was a accident right outside of Kohberger's apartment that very same night. And there was a lot of activity going around where Kohberger lived. A lot of cops, and it was somebody was drunk and or almost hit two pedestrians and then hit a fire hydrant, I believe, and then took off, like fled. And so the cops are driving around and looking for this person until early hours in the morning, like 5 a.m. So the story, the narrative is that Kohberger did this and then he comes back again in the morning to scope it out. But yet all this is activities going on with the cops looking for this person by his apartment. I don't know. I just feel like there's so much activity going on, and Greek Rose, everybody's in close proximity. I don't feel like that's something maybe he would do. I don't think so. I think if you're killed 4 people, you'd want to stay the hell away and you wouldn't be driving around. Just let me talk.
He's not duck.
Let me talk. Just because you had kids walking up, you had kids supposedly getting the text message way before the cops even arrived that there was 4 dead students. That supposedly went out on their, whatever their text streaming is for the campus. So they were all aware of the situation, rumored to be aware of the situation before it was even reported. There was a lot of students milling about, just kind of wandering around, kind of what's happening. I don't know, like you read the reports and it's supposed to be black and white, but if you really start looking and digging and asking questions of the witnesses, then there's a lot of other things that are unanswered. And
but I read a lot of witness reports, and every witness report from a student at the school that I read.
Don't say every. Did you read everyone?
All of the witness ones, all the ones that I had.
Okay.
Is what I'm referring to. None of them indicated that they knew anything about it before the law enforcement showed up, that they knew about it when the text that the college sends out, when they receive that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, of course, there was a rumor that, hey, somebody got shot. Now, my theory on why somebody would say that is because they thought, 4 dead people.
There's actually a report from a police officer that had a call from a student that said, hey, so-and-so called me, and he said that he put on his grandpa's ATF coat and hat and went into the house while the bodies were being removed.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like they all were double tapped, and there was a blood trail leading from the bathroom to Xana's room.
Yeah, I seen that. They actually went and they interrogated. They talked to that person.
What did he say?
He was never in the house.
Okay.
And according to law enforcement, they didn't let anybody into the house other than, we're talking about a department that the guys that are on duty probably all know each other. And so if some weird guy would have came up wearing a, FBI or ATF or anything for that matter, that probably would have been something that just would have been noted. I spoke to agent such and such.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would have also absolutely ID'd him. Like, you can wear a coat that says FBI, law enforcement, whatever. You are not getting into that crime scene unless you've got credentials.
Right.
Unless, it's like me and my partner or another coworker that I know he works for law enforcement. I'm not going to ask to see his ID because I already know who he is. But unidentified, not walking
So
in.
then did they identify the police officer that supposedly Kayla was having this affair with?
I never saw nothing about that.
Okay. There's just a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also a lot of bullshit.
There's a lot of bullshit
that people just like to stir up.
Well, sure.
And see, that's probably the difference between me and you so far as I tend to look at things that I can maybe verify. And now I do hear certain
you're-
things as
you-
like, well, this,
The only thing you can go by is the discretion of what the police officer is writing in their report.
mhm. And I compare
And
what
you
they,
have to understand too, because I'm not law enforcement, so I'm coming at a different point of view from
Sure.
where I feel like if there's something that a cop doesn't want to put in a report, they might not put it in a report.
and that's very possible.
And if they had fucked up and had some kid in an ATF coat accidentally walk in and see something and they didn't catch it because there was so much stuff going on, they're not going to write that in a report because they fucked up and didn't catch the kid. So that's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not saying it happened. I'm not saying he wasn't lying about it and just was telling a tall tale, because he could have. But I'm just saying, if it did happen and the police didn't want to be like, ooh, oopsie, they're going to leave it out. Or they're going to say, yeah, we questioned him and he said he wasn't there.
I don't think a medical examiner would ever leave that out.
I wasn't talking about a medical examiner.
Well, I'm saying he said if they had been shot and he claimed, hey, them guys have all been double tapped, then if they had been shot, that a medical examiner would include that. So that's what I was talking about. If this kid said, yeah, I went in there and I saw they were shot, and it turns out they were never shot.
There's no way that kid could tell that, because if the bodies are, if they're supposedly leaving with him, well, he's not there examining them. So obviously I don't believe that theory, but I'm just saying there's things that.
The reason I don't think he got in there is because I've been to enough crime scenes myself that anybody that shows up that's not from the department would definitely have to show credentials,
unless you're in Canton, Massachusetts.
You know, that's
so I mean, that's the only thing, is that this police department also has a reputation similar to that. There's a lot of trafficking supposedly going on in the area.
Well, I think on a college campus, there's probably going to be a lot of that sort of activity around. I mean, it's definitely not uncommon. And obviously they had amphetamine, 2 of the victims, in their system. So there's no denying that drug activity. And as a matter of fact, I think even one of the witness statements that I was reading, one of the witnesses stated that one of the victims used cocaine. So also, I mean, I'm not really surprised by that, just because, I mean, I know college kids. I've had college kids. I mean, it's no secret what goes on with college kids. So whether it be alcohol or drugs or any other crazy thing you can think of has probably happened on a campus. Probably happened on all those campuses, but
sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't know really what to say, because I feel like I'm not really going to speak eloquently enough to get my point across. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that.
I don't think that you necessarily have to. One thing I want to
because
make
I just
clear is, you know, there is the possibility of more than one, and I still think that it is a possibility. So I consider that there's a lot of possibilities. And one of the things I struggle with, and one thing that I hate, and I think a lot of people hate, is not knowing. I don't like the fact that it didn't go to trial. I kind of wish it would. Now I know it would have been tough for the families, and I feel terrible for the families. And I don't want people to listen to this and think that I don't, because
neither do I.
I've worked some awful cases. I haven't worked anything like this, but I've worked some bad enough that I've had to deal with the families, and I feel terrible for them. But I think the trial would have helped explain some things one way or the other, or at least maybe given people a better idea. And it may have even dispelled some things that maybe weren't true. But I also think that they should have had some sort of a proffer. Now, granted, he could have lied. I know that that's one thing that the prosecuting attorney said. Well, he could have just lied. I mean, that's what they do. They lie. And so, I mean, why even hear it? Well, I mean, it's something.
Yeah. 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 I just, yeah, I don't even know what to say because, there's supposed connections with Xana's mother, who is a known drug user, a repetitive drug user. There's also connections with Maddie's stepmom, who's in jail because she's a repetitive drug user and intent to, what's the term?
Distribute.
There you go. Those connections with that they were possibly informants, the activity of the I don't want to call it a drug ring, but like the activity that was going around in the community, the correlation with supposed gangs in the community that specifically targeted college kids, and more specifically to those in the Greek society of college, so fraternities and sororities specifically. The connection with some of their even grandfathers within the school. There's just a lot of things that make you kind of scratch your head and like, is there something bigger going on that everybody is just not talking about? Nobody wants to really look at. I just think there's more to it. And I think it involves a lot of things. I think it involves these gangs. I think one of the theories is that they were using this house as a distributing house. The rumor is that supposedly there was a stash found and it was flushed by one of the victims. I don't know. And like I said, those are just rumors and speculations, but it makes you kind of want to ask more questions about it and maybe get down to the bottom of why are those rumors going around? Rumors, I mean, when you talk about rumors, there's maybe a little speck of truth in all of them. Now, maybe they're not all true, but you have to wonder, why is that rumor being said? And it should be, I think, looked at and questioned, and maybe, okay, well, this started because of this, and that, or I can debunk this. But there's just so many in this case. And it's just hard to ignore all of it and just say, nope, Kohberger did it in the middle of the night and they were all sleeping, even though there's blood splatter everywhere on these walls. And there's 2 male DNA blood splatter that are unidentified. And I don't know, it just makes no sense to me. And that I feel like it's not the way they're telling us.
I think that you could probably take every major crime and probably make that same argument. And I think that the problem, at least so far as an investigation goes, is if you were a law enforcement officer, you're an investigating agency, and you're dealing with a major crime such as this one, and you put all of your effort into chasing every rumor, you're never gonna solve it. And so
sure.
Typically how they go, and in this case, is they look at their surveillance video, they identify a vehicle that seems odd on how they thought it circled. So they thought, well, we'll start with this. It's something to look at.
But then at the same time, they themselves said, well, we can't find a connection between him and these victims.
At that point?
They're saying it now.
Well, you mean like a connection?
As to why. There's no connection, there's no motive, there's no, and why this house?
No, their theory is that he was a serial stalker. He stalked people.
Yeah, I know that. But now they're saying that doesn't happen because they can't even connect him to their social media.
No. They're doing that through pings. They're saying that he had been in that area around their house
But
multiple
again,
times.
like I said, there's these 7 missing minutes, and it's
Sure.
now it's not correlating with the pings. It's just they're.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
and they're also looking at, and they're going to look at multiple things. So they have the
Which it doesn't
footprints.
matter because he confessed
No,
to it. Now the
sure.
question is why? There's and I don't. Again, here's another thing that came out is supposedly, he's part of his career and what he's studying is psychology, and he's been studying serial killers, and he's also been studying criminals and the death penalty and plea agreements or plea deals. And so he had just wrote a major paper on that.
Mm-hmm. He also studied murder porn, which is getting into his psyche.
Right.
The one thing that I thought was interesting is one of the studies that he did is he was trying to do a survey, and he wanted to talk to people that were committing crimes. And what he was really interested in is, what were you thinking about? So, how did it feel when you were actually committing?
Okay, and I know where you're going with that, but where I'm going with that is that they knew this about him. He was doing this. What if he, like I said, I think he was involved, but I don't think he did the killing. I think he was involved in that type of situation. He was doing research. He wanted to know, he wanted to be right in the mix, or they pegged him to be in the mix. But I don't think he did any of it. I think in his brain, because of, again, I'm going to go with the theory, I think he's got a little tism. He's infatuated by it.
You think he could have studied how to get away with it?
Oh, Possible. I'm sure. But if he studied how to get away with it, why would he plead guilty? Because that doesn't make any sense. I
actually think he pled guilty is because I think that ultimately he knew the amount of, the DNA evidence and the circumstantial, that there was no way that he was probably going to convince a jury that he didn't.
The staggering amount of DNA evidence on the snap button when you've got blood of 2 male people in the house, but they're going on the snap.
Well, they're going on more than the snap. See, you can't take just a snap and say, well, they had to snap as DNA. It had to be him. They're going off of snap DNA. They're going off the fact that there was a vehicle in the area
that wasn't necessarily his, that they couldn't identify that it was his, that looked like his, but doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. That was similar to his. I didn't say it was his. I said it was
right.
It matched. But it matched his vehicle.
Ultimately, they're going off of the snap DNA.
Mm-hmm. That's what they connected.
But you got 2 blood of.
Mm-hmm. Did they test the blood?
Yes.
They identified that it was two unidentified males. Mm-hmm. 2 unidentified males.
They didn't run it through the same system as they ran Kohberger through, so far as the genealogy. So they ran it through CODIS, and the problem with CODIS is the same as with APHIS, which is fingerprints.
You have to be a criminal.
You have to be in the system.
Yeah.
They don't just put everybody in there.
Yeah. But I mean, they got.
Where was the blood? The blood was found in the house.
Mm-hmm. So now I agree. I wish they would have.
On the, like the top banister or the rail.
So. I believe it's on the rail.
Yeah.
So I wish they would have too. I'm not going to argue that.
That part bugs me big time because I'm like, your whole case is on the snap DNA because it's circumstantial with the vehicle, and now that there's that missing time frame.
Well, it's circumstantial with. This is all of the circumstantial. The circumstantial would be the vehicle, size 13 shoe with the same tread that was a Nike that matched the shoe that was found in his parents' house. The fact that it was a K-bar knife and sheath, which he had purchased, that he was wearing a black mask, which they'd found that he had purchased. What else was there? There was the pings of the location. There was.
That's kind of the ping on the location is to me not credible.
The fact that his cell phone was turned off at 2:54 and then turned back on at 4:48. So it was turned off just before.
Well, they said they didn't say it was necessarily turned off. It just wasn't getting any texts or calls during that
Nope,
time.
it was actually shut. It was put in a shutdown. The people that looked at the phone, I watched an interview.
I did too. And they said that it says,
they said it was shut down with 100% battery, and then it was manually powered off, manually powered on.
And I read
with 100%
I saw
battery.
An interview through
It's a husband and wife.
Through Law and Crime.
Mm-hmm.
One of those lawyers said it was not necessarily shut off. It was not getting texts or calls during that particular time, and it wasn't getting
the
signal.
It was a husband and wife team that do.
Again, we're dealing
stuff.
we're dealing with two different forensic people. So I'm not going to go on 100% what they say, which somebody's debunking what they're saying.
But regardless, they did say that whether it was off or let's say it was set to airplane mode, one of the things they look for is because people do often shut their phones off and then power them back on for whatever reason. It might be because they want to do a reset on the phone, or sometimes people do that because they think, okay, it preserves the phone, whatever the case may be. But he had no pattern of doing that. And so that's one of the things they looked at is, well, he never does it. Why would he do it? And it just happened at the same time. So that doesn't mean that he did it, but it's just like, okay, you have all of these things with the DNA, the knife, the footprint, the car, the cell phone being shut off, the pings. They look at all of it and say, it's all of that.
Yeah. And I'm going to disagree and say, well, that necessarily didn't happen.
Yeah. It's definitely probable cause for an arrest. Definitely probable cause for arrest. And I think he feared that it was in front of a jury that they would find there was proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure.
And I think that was...
Well, and I agree. I agree that he saw the writing on the wall because he, again, did a paper on this, did an essay on this. And he's like, well, he's avoiding the death penalty. So he's going to plead guilty.
Possibly.
So...
yeah, it's interesting, and there's a lot, and there's, like I said, there's still document dumps. So maybe there'll be more. Maybe they'll be able to answer some of the questions that you have or I have. I heard the excuse on why they didn't run the blood.
What was their excuse?
I don't like it. They claimed that it was some sort of an invasion of privacy. Yeah, what? And I don't, and so I don't understand the laws behind it. And this is the part that I thought was weird, is they said that because they found the sheath in close proximity, basically right there where one of the murders was committed, that was good enough. But because the DNA was found on a handrail outside of a room, that it was far enough away from the scene that they worried that there would be an invasion. Now, I disagree. Personally, I disagree with that. I think, I'd send it in anyway, because if it's unidentified, I want to identify it. I want to know, why is this here and who does it belong to?
There was also two discrepancies on, I don't remember who actually, two discrepancies in the report. One of them was saying that maybe it was the prosecutor, I can't remember who, was saying that because obviously they went in and they took samples and they labeled things, and then they went in again, I don't know how long later, and did it again, and then they went in a third time and did it a third time. So there's different labels on the different samples that they took. And the gal, I can't remember, I'm sorry, who did the report, but the gal, her initial report, she had read the samples as being Xana's in the kitchen area and in the hallway. And so in her report, she made the claim that there was an obvious struggle on the second floor in the kitchen living room area. There was an obvious struggle going on, and because of the evidence of the blood and yada yada. Initially saying it was Xana's, but then when the blood came back and was tested and they matched up the labels because they had relabeled them, the FBI had relabeled them, it actually was Kaylee's blood in the kitchen and in the hallway or the stairwell. And then she changed her story and said, well, no, I guess there wasn't a struggle. So the discrepancy right there where one, she said, well, there was an obvious struggle here because of where all the blood is and how much blood there is. Now she's saying, well, no. Now I'm saying, no, there's not, because it was Kaylee's blood and not Xana's. And the narrative is that Kaylee was sleeping in her bed. And so she couldn't say that then because it's Kaylee's blood all over the second floor, even though she's on the third floor. And she initially said that there was a struggle that happened, an obvious struggle. And now she had to change her tune. And that part bothers me because I'm like, oh, well, you're changing your narrative now because of you screwed up the first results. And now you're having to change your story. That you either get the results or you don't. Like, this is what you say happened or not. And now she's changing her story because they were supposedly sleeping in bed, murdered in bed.
I don't think there was a struggle on that second floor in the living room.
I think you really need to look at the blood spatter and the blood pattern then.
What I looked at was a table with all of the red Solo cups still stacked on it. None of them knocked over, but two. It's a plastic table. If I go like this,
you don't think
I knock over a cup.
You don't think those cups could be set up after the fact, after a cleanup?
Could have.
Did you look at all the blood underneath that rail? Did you look at the blood that's in the stairwell up?
There's
up
a few
on
drops.
The wall up there?
A few drops.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like a huge cast.
But if you're saying that's Xana's, then why is it Maddie's and Kaylee's blood and not Xana's blood if he's struggling with Xana?
I don't think it was Xana's blood. Okay,
but the theory then is that Xana was struggling with him.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that happen at?
I think it's possible it's still cast off from the blood remaining on the weapon. If he would have seen
why
it,
was there cast off?
Going like that to take off after her, and that's what I think. I think that's possible.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think he ran with his hands by his head.
Look at the pictures and then you tell me where it's all at and then explain that to me on how it got on all of those surfaces the way they did and where the rubbing off was, like where there was rubbed. Like, why was he there?
Why was he in a different part of the house, or what do you mean?
Well, yeah, the claim is that he just went from their bedrooms to the bedrooms and killed him, and then he got out. But there's blood all over the place, all over up and down the stairwell, all over the handrails.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I don't know.
Because that's not the story they're telling us.
I couldn't I couldn't say this was his exact path. Like he walked down the hallway and he made a direct right turn. And
I think maybe just take a closer look at the blood in the pictures and where it's all labeled.
I'm probably going to take a lot closer look just at the whole thing, because most of what I've done, because everything's rolling out so fast.
Yeah.
I don't possibly have time to really.
Right. And like I said, that's kind of the part I focus on is the pictures, because that's the first thing I got was the picture dump. And so I'm looking at everything. And then I go and I looked at reports of whose blood is there and how plausible it could be, how it could get there. And then the way it also looks visually with my eyes.
So there's probably going to be a part 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think so.
How long is this from?
I think we've been arguing a long time.
Hour 20.
That's all right.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, how boring would it be though?
Oh, my God.
If you said something and I went, yep, and then I said something and went, yep. That'd be boring as hell.
My biggest thing.
My mind is just spinning with this one, and I can't let it go because it does not make sense to me. And until something, I'm gonna be like a dog with a bone until it makes sense. And that's the thing; it does not freaking make sense to me, and that's why I'm just like,
Go ahead.
My biggest thing is the 2 that survived.
Oh, we didn't even get into
Yeah.
those two
Well,
yet.
we might have to save that.
Which, and they lost their friends. It's very traumatic. Can't imagine the lives that they're having to live now. But the two that survived, if there's so much blood in this house, and even if they've got the wounds on their faces and they go to, I don't even know, does it say which roommate they actually go to?
What do you mean?
Well, because it says that they
They
called
saw-
their friends.
They saw Xana laying on the floor in
Okay.
the doorway to her bedroom.
Okay. There's no blood? Like, you don't see blood around her? Like,
I mean, I don't know. They called it in as somebody passed out, so that's another point.
And
that,
it's the thing about it is you look at their phone activity. They were up all night, all morning long. They were on TikTok. They were taking pictures. They were on Snapchat.
Yeah.
They were adding a new contact to their phone. They called their dad. One of them had a toothache. One of them called their dad for another reason. If they were up, their phone activity was going nonstop.
oh, some things can be true and completely not make sense. I will say that. I've got an example.
That's the thing, is it don't freaking make sense. And
We were talking, I don't know if we must have been texting, and it had to do with perception, or I can't remember how the text went, but it made me think of something, because we were talking about like how you perceive things, or how you would understand it, versus how I would understand it, something to that effect. And it made me think of a time where I was talking to a coworker once, and we were talking about riding motorcycles. And he had a little bit of experience riding motorcycles, not a lot. And I didn't have a whole lot, but I had been riding for a little while throughout the summer. And I told him, I said, you know what's weird? I said, so if I'm driving this motorcycle down the highway and I'm coming up to a curve, and let's say this curve curves to the left, in order for me to make that left-hand turn, I turn the wheel to the right. And he says, bullshit. He goes, I ride them around town. When you want to turn right, you turn it right. I said, you do. You do when you're in town and you're going less than 20 miles per hour. But as soon as you get past, it's like 20 some miles per hour, you have to counter steer.
mm-hmm.
And it makes no sense when you're doing it. And I'm glad somebody told me about this, because when I was riding this motorcycle, and I was struggling the first day. First time I ever rode a motorcycle in my life, I rode it from St. Paul back to Palmer, and I had to get it out of town first, which was a chore because I almost ended up in a neighbor's yard when I first left the driveway. But anyways, the guy that was riding with me that was going to show me how to ride, he said, the only thing I want you to remember is when we get on that highway and we have to make that left-hand turn from Highway 281 to 92, you turn that handlebar slightly to the right. I thought, what the hell would I turn it from the right for? He goes, because when you turn that to the right, you're going to turn left.
Because it's a sharp.
Even if it's gradual. So I thought it was weird because I did it, and sure enough, it went right around that turn. I thought, man, that's weird. So I was coming up the highway, and I would just take, a little bit. I would, push the handlebars to turn right, push it, turn left, just back and forth a little bit as I was going down the highway. And the motorcycle went in the opposite direction I steered the whole way home. And I don't know why I was fascinated with that, because I was like, it don't even make sense. But when I sat down and thought about it, it does, because when you turn the handlebars going down the highway at speed, when you turn it, it forces the bike into a lean, and it leans in the opposite direction you steer. And that lean counteracts the angle of that wheel, and it pulls you in the opposite direction. But when I was explaining it, he's like, it doesn't make sense. It ain't true. I said, I did it.
He just needs to go watch the movie Cars, Pixar, Cars. Doc, what's his name?
Doc.
He said it.
Anyways, I think the whole point of that
What's
story
his name?
was
Doc Hudson. Gotta go listen to Doc Hudson.
sometimes things sound like they don't make sense.
Yeah.
But they do. So, and who knows what
Well,
we're going to talk about
this
next time,
one,
or how it's going to go.
this one doesn't make no sense to me.
Yeah. And who knows, by the time we do the next episode about it, I may have a
Well,
totally different view.
And I totally get, I get your theory and how you're trying to make the pieces fit and how this would happen and this and that. But in my brain, logically, doesn't make sense.
And that's where I was going. I think it was comparing logic. Like,
yeah,
to me, logic, what's logical to me might not be logical
yeah,
to you,
right,
and vice versa. So, but we better go ahead.
No, I'm just like, yeah, no, it's two separate sides of the coin is what, like, your perception, my perception of how things would go.
We don't even have to punch each other in the face or nothing.
No, I mean, I knew it was going to be this way because like I said, I know we are a yin and yang, and I know how you think, and you're very
simple-minded.
Well, no, not simple-minded. It's factual, and you're kind of in a box, and I am always outside of the box. Always. I haven't always an outside of the box way of thinking. And I think that's always kind of how I am. It's because of my curiosity. And I'm always trying to maybe prove why something wouldn't be that way.
Well, and I am that way on certain things. Crime is hard for me because I spent so much time in a law enforcement capacity that I struggle a little bit more when it comes to crime, because when we talk about crime, naturally I go into, I guess you could say cop brain. Because when I worked it, all I did was I looked for things that were fact. I looked for things that I could prove. Now, I will say one thing that I think I was pretty good at, and maybe I wasn't, is I tried not to get tunnel vision. Because the danger of tunnel vision, especially in law enforcement, like if you really focus on just this fact and you never take a step back and say, what else is going on around, it might lead you in a completely wrong direction. And the one thing I never wanted to do was arrest the wrong person. I never wanted to be that person who took someone to jail, they went to court, they were convicted, and then I found out 5-10 years later they didn't do it, because that would be an awful feeling. And it does irritate me when that happens and law enforcement says, nope, I'm still right. Like, dude, if you are wrong, the best thing you can do is admit you're wrong. It's okay.
Yeah. And I think I also have now kind of this speculation on everything not speculation, that's the wrong word. Suspicion on everything as far as law enforcement goes, because now we've done Karen Reed, we've done the Ellen Greenberg, we've done Scott Peterson. Like, there's some cases that you look at and it's not the way they laid it out to us. And I feel like maybe this scenario is a little tunnel visioned, and okay, we got our guy, case closed, he admitted guilt to it. And it would be just easier to just accept it. Easier for the community, easier for the families, easier for the police, easier for everybody. And I just feel like maybe that's kind of why we're just nobody's really looking into any other
I would be lying if I said that probably never happens. And my ego isn't so big to say that, that law enforcement never does that, because that would be a lie.
Well, it made everything tie into a nice little bow. The fact that he pled guilty, they dozed over the property. Now you can't look into anything.
But where I am cautious, though, is that I don't blanket judge all law enforcement as default.
No,
bad.
And
I know you're not saying that. And this is more for listeners. I don't want you to think that anybody on this podcast would make a blanket statement. I do think, though, that it is definitely healthy to question. And I think you should hold your local law enforcement accountable, because once you once everybody quits doing that, that's when things spiral out of control. And the good officers that I know want people to do that. And that's why they're good officers, because they hold other law enforcement officers accountable. They want people to hold them accountable. And a lot of them have become wise enough, especially because new law enforcement officers are probably the trickiest, because everybody knows what a rookie cop is like. They're pretty, I don't want to say they're bad cops, but they don't have experience. So they're in total cop mode, but your ego gets smaller the longer you're in. I think some people maybe don't, but the guys that I know, the longer they're in, the smaller their ego gets.
Well, yeah, because because you've had enough time to make enough mistakes that you're like, okay, I can shrink my ego down because I've made some mistakes, and I think that goes with everybody.
And there was a period of time I had a huge ego. Like if somebody told me I was wrong, I was going to argue that to the death. But I mean, I haven't been that way in a long time, and now I'm in a management role, and that's definitely not my go-to.
Yeah.
So I actually, more often than not, the first person I always blame is myself. Because I think you can learn a hell of a lot more doing that.
Well, and yeah, I didn't mean to sound disrespectful or anything like that, because that's not what I'm getting at. I just, like I said,
I just know how listeners are or can be. A group of them, not all of them, but where they're like, aha, they hate cops.
No. It's just because I got that ADD brain that just doesn't shut off, and it just keeps asking those dumb questions like, well, what if this? And like I said, if the pieces don't all fit together for me, then I just got to keep looking.
The way you are with crime is the way I am with religion.
Oh, see, we probably need to have that discussion.
We might have to have a different podcast for that. But anyways, we better wrap this thing up.
All right. Yep. Till next time.
All right. We'll catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.